You see, in our modern way of thinking, we often place loyalty on the same shelf as ambitions as though it were something we strive toward, like wealth or fitness or professional success. But this is a mistake. Loyalty, if it is true, cannot be a goal. For a goal, you work toward it, and one day you arrive, and the very moment you arrive, you may say, "Now it is done." A standard, however, is different. A standard is a way of living. It is the minimum height of your character, the ground you refuse to fall below. You do not reach a standard and then retire from it, you embody it. The sun does not rise one morning and say, "I've done enough shining, I'll rest now." It continues because shining is what it is. Most people confuse loyalty with convenience. I will be loyal to you so long as you do not make me uncomfortable, so long as you do not fail me, so long as my benefit is intact. This is not loyalty. This is bargain, making a business arrangement disguised as affection. True loyalty is like the roots of a great tree. They hold firm in the soil even through storms. They do not say, "I will only stay if the weather is perfect." But here's the paradox: loyalty to others begins with loyalty to yourself. If you abandon your own truth to please another, that is not loyalty, that is self-betrayal. You cannot be loyal to someone else if, in the process, you become a stranger to your own soul. It is as if you were a bridge crumbling from neglect, still trying to carry others. A bridge that cannot hold itself cannot carry another. So when we speak of loyalty as a standard, we are speaking of character. And character is not built in great dramatic moments, but in the quiet, ordinary decisions we make daily. It is in the phone call you return, the promise you keep, the person you do not speak ill of when they are not in the room. It is the refusal to let temporary emotion undo permanent bonds. Now, if loyalty is your standard, you will find it frees you, because you no longer have to ask yourself in each situation, "Should I be loyal here?" It is already decided. You do not negotiate with your standards, you live them, and yet, there is another side to this. You must not confuse loyalty with blind attachment. If a ship is sinking because its captain refuses to repair it, loyalty does not mean you go down without question. Loyalty also has the courage to speak truth, to confront, to demand better because it seeks the good of the one to whom it is given. So, remember, a goal is something you pursue when you want it. A standard is something you uphold because without it, you are no longer yourself. And in this way, loyalty, real loyalty, is not something you achieve. It is the ground you walk upon, the compass you navigate by, and the quiet assurance that whatever the weather may bring, you will stand not because it is easy, but because it is who you are. Loyalty is often spoken of as though it is some far off summit we climb toward, a badge to earn after a long journey. But the truth is, loyalty is not a trophy to be placed on a shelf. It is not the kind of thing you can one day declare you have achieved and then set aside. When we treat loyalty like a goal, we reduce it to a transaction, a point on a checklist, and miss its deeper meaning. A goal is something you can reach and be done with. You train for a marathon, you run it, you finish, and the medal is yours. You aim for a promotion, you work hard, you get it, and the target is met. Goals are temporary by nature. They exist for the sake of completion. Once they are fulfilled, the effort can stop. But loyalty cannot operate in that same rhythm. You cannot say, "I will be loyal until Tuesday," or "I have been loyal enough, now I am finished." Real loyalty does not have an expiry date, because it is not built on accomplishment, it is woven into your way of being. When loyalty is part of your character, it becomes like the heart, beat a constant, steady rhythm, not something you summon only when it's convenient. It is not reactive, it is proactive. It doesn't wait for a reason to appear. It already exists, unshaken, before any reason is required. That is why calling loyalty a goal is misleading. Goals are about what you want to do. Loyalty is about who you are, and there is something freeing about this. If loyalty is an inner quality rather than a target, then it is not dependent on conditions or rewards. You are not loyal because the circumstances are ideal. You are loyal because your nature doesn't allow you to be otherwise. It is not a conscious calculation, but an instinct born from your values. This also means that loyalty is not about perfection or blind adherence. People may disappoint you, situations may change, yet loyalty, as an inner quality, doesn't simply vanish at the first sign of imperfection. It adapts, it forgives, it persists. When you see loyalty as an achievement, you risk abandoning it the moment it feels too heavy or costly. But when you live it as part of your very identity, you do not need to ask, should I be loyal here? You already know. So the real shift is in understanding that loyalty is not something you aim for. It is something you embody. You don't arrive at it, you carry it with you. It is not a medal to be won. It is the ground you choose to stand on every day. And once you see it this way, you will stop chasing it and start living it. And that is where its real strength lies. A goal and a standard may appear similar at first glance, but they are worlds apart in how they shape a person's life. A goal is something you reach for a finish line in the distance that motivates you to move forward. It's a destination, you measure your progress toward it, and when you arrive, there is a moment of completion, perhaps even celebration. But then it's over, you've done it, the chapter closes. That is the nature of a goal. It is bound by time, by circumstance, and by the sense of having arrived. A standard, however, is not a destination. It is a baseline, the level beneath which you refuse to fall. While a goal exists outside of you, a standard lives within you. It is not something you one day decide to be done with. It is the measure you hold yourself to, no matter where you are in life or what you are facing. A standard shapes your daily choices, not just your occasional achievements. Think of it this way: training for a race is a goal, but committing to personal health is a standard. A goal can end, a standard endures. And when it comes to loyalty, this distinction is everything. If you treat loyalty like a goal, you might express it only when the situation demands it or when there's an obvious reward. You might be loyal in one season of life, but let it fade in another. But if you treat loyalty as a standard, it becomes part of your identity, something that influences your actions every day, whether anyone notices or not. Standards are like the foundation of a building. They don't move just because the weather changes. They remain firm because everything else depends on them. In contrast, goals are like renovations. They add value, they improve, but they can be completed and set aside. Without the foundation of standards, the renovations will eventually crumble. When you hold loyalty as a standard, you no longer make decisions based solely on mood, convenience, or short-term gain. You act from a steady internal compass. You do not have to constantly decide whether you will be loyal today or not. The decision has already been made because it's part of who you are. And here is the beauty of standards. They protect you from inconsistency. Goals can be abandoned when motivation fades, but standards survive both good days and bad. They do not depend on your feelings, they depend on your values. Loyalty, as a standard, is not about the occasional moments when you rise to the occasion. It's about the everyday consistency of staying true to your word, your relationships, and your principles, regardless of the shifting winds around you. Many people misunderstand loyalty because they see it as something that can be switched on and off, depending on the situation. They treat it like a contract with fine print, full of conditions and exceptions. I'll be loyal as long as you treat me well. I'll stand by you if you always agree with me. I'll remain committed until you make a mistake that offends me. This is not loyalty, it is a transaction dressed up as devotion. It exists only when it's convenient and disappears the moment it becomes difficult. Conditional loyalty is fragile. It can appear strong in good times, but the moment life tests it, it cracks. It's like a rope that looks thick but is made of cheap fibers. One sharp pull and it snaps. Real loyalty cannot be bought with comfort or destroyed by inconvenience. It isn't dependent on whether someone makes you happy all the time or whether circumstances remain easy. Instead, it's anchored in principle, in the decision to remain true even when it costs you something. The problem with conditional loyalty is that it's self-serving at its core. It's less about the person or cause you claim to be loyal to, and more about what you can get from them. As long as the exchange benefits you, you remain present. When the benefits fade, so does your commitment. This is why relationships, friendships, and even partnerships built on this kind of loyalty often crumble because they were never rooted in anything stable to begin with. True loyalty, by contrast, is not about constant agreement or blind obedience. It allows for disagreements, disappointments, and even conflict without abandoning the connection. It says, "I will still be here, even when I don't like everything you do." It holds steady through the storms because it is not built on flawless circumstances. It's built on the choice to value the bond more than temporary discomfort. This does not mean loyalty demands you accept mistreatment or remain in harmful situations. Real loyalty does not require you to silence your voice or sacrifice your well-being. In fact, the deepest loyalty often involves telling hard truths and confronting what's wrong, not to harm, but to protect what matters. It means you care enough to fight for the relationship, rather than quietly slipping away when it becomes challenging. When loyalty becomes conditional, it loses its meaning. It becomes nothing more than a shadow of convenience. But when it is unconditional, guided by mutual respect, honesty, and shared values, it transforms into something rare and unshakable. It's the kind of loyalty that survives the highs and lows, that remains when it would be easier to walk away, and that says more about your character than about the circumstances you face. Loyalty to others cannot exist in its purest form if you are not first loyal to yourself. It may sound noble to pour yourself out for others, to place their needs above your own in every situation, but if doing so forces you to betray your own values, then what you are practicing is not loyalty, it is self-abandonment. And self-abandonment, over time, erodes both your spirit and your ability to stand for anyone else. To be loyal to yourself means to recognize your own worth, to protect your integrity, and to honor the principles that guide you. It's the refusal to compromise on what you know is right simply to win approval or avoid conflict. Without this inner loyalty, your loyalty to others will always be shaky because it will rest on the shifting ground of their behavior, their opinion, or their acceptance of you. Think of it like a bridge. A bridge must be strong in its own structure before it can bear the weight of those crossing it. If it is poorly built, it will eventually collapse, not out of malice, but because it was never able to hold the load. In the same way, if you lack loyalty to your own convictions, your loyalty to others will crumble the moment you are pressured to act against your conscience. When you remain loyal to yourself, you create a steady foundation from which true loyalty to others can grow. You can stand beside someone even in their most difficult moments, not because you are dependent on their validation, but because you have already decided who you are and what you stand for. You are not swayed by the temporary winds of opinion or the tides of convenience. This form of loyalty is not selfish. In fact, it is one of the greatest gifts you can offer those you care about. When you are loyal to yourself, you become consistent, trustworthy, and dependable. People know where you stand because your actions are anchored in principle, not in impulse. They can rely on you not because you agree with them on everything, but because your integrity doesn't waver. The danger of ignoring self-loyalty is that you may end up giving to others in a way that drains you, leaving nothing left for either of you. Over time, this breeds quiet resentment, exhaustion, and even a sense of being used. True loyalty is sustainable because it flows from a full heart, not an empty one. In the end, being loyal to yourself is not in competition with being loyal to others. It is the very thing that makes it possible. When your loyalty begins within, it becomes unshakable without. It allows you to stand with others from a place of strength rather than from a place of need. And that is the kind of loyalty that lasts. Loyalty is not built in rare, dramatic moments, but in the quiet, consistent actions that often go unnoticed. People tend to think of loyalty as something proven through grand sacrifices, rushing to someone's aid in a crisis, defending them in a public confrontation, or making an extraordinary gesture of support. While these moments can be powerful, they are not the true foundation of loyalty. What really defines it are the small, steady commitments you keep every day. It's in the message you return even when you're busy, simply because you said you would. It's in remembering the details someone once told you, showing them they matter. It's in the choice not to speak ill of someone when they aren't present to defend themselves. These are not headline-worthy actions, but they build the kind of trust that cannot be faked. Over time, these small acts of reliability accumulate into a deep reservoir of faith between people. The challenge is that daily loyalty requires patience and discipline. It means showing up when there's no applause and keeping your word when no one is watching. It's easy to be loyal when it costs nothing. It's harder when it demands your time, your energy, or your pride. But that is where loyalty is tested, in the ordinary moments when it would be easier to excuse yourself and look the other way. Another truth is that loyalty doesn't always feel dramatic in the moment. You may not feel like you're doing anything remarkable when you keep a promise or stand by someone quietly. But the person on the receiving end often remembers it far longer than you realize. Loyalty's strength lies in its predictability, in knowing that you can be counted on not just when the storm hits, but also on the calm, uneventful days. It's important to understand that loyalty expressed in small actions is also loyalty maintained in silence. Sometimes it's what you choose not to do, not joining in gossip, not revealing private information, not letting temporary frustration undo a lasting relationship. These decisions, though invisible to most, are proof of your steadfastness. In the same way, loyalty isn't about perfection. You won't always agree with the people you're loyal to, and they won't always meet your expectations. But consistency in the little things communicates that your bond is bigger than any one disagreement. It says, even when I don't like what's happening right now, I'm still here. Ultimately, loyalty thrives in the day-to-day. It is woven into habits, words, and choices that, taken individually, may seem small, but together, they create something unshakable. The grand moments will come and go, but it is the daily reaffirmation of commitment that makes loyalty real, lasting, and powerful. Loyalty is not a milestone to be reached or a badge to be earned. It is a living principle that shapes the way you move through the world. When you treat it as a goal, it becomes temporary and fragile. But when you hold it as a standard, it becomes an inseparable part of your character. It is not conditional, swaying with circumstances or personal gain. It is not blind, sacrificing truth for the sake of comfort. Real loyalty begins with the courage to be loyal to yourself, to stand by your values, even when it's inconvenient, and from that foundation, it extends outward to others with strength and consistency. It is proven not by grand, occasional gestures, but through the small, steady actions you take each day. The promises you keep, the respect you show when no one is watching, the relationships you protect through both words and silence. When loyalty becomes who you are rather than something you do, it cannot be shaken by time, distance, or difficulty. It becomes a quiet strength, a steady anchor, and one of the clearest reflections of your true character. In the end, it is not about how loudly you declare your loyalty, but how faithfully you live it every day, in ways both seen and unseen.